welcome to Slapton, our centre located on the south coast of Devon. And in this video we're going to be taking a little look at some signs of spring that you can keep an eye out for all over the country. Now, as winter is slowly starting to fade away, we are now getting these warmer, sunnier days. Coming up through the leaf litter from last year's autumn, here are some of our daffodils. Now, these are generally the first signs of spring that you might notice. They're coming up and should be flowering in the next couple of weeks. As the spring warms up, the spring actually spreads from south to the north, roughly at walking pace. So we're going to be showing you a few things you can keep an eye out for in your local area. So we've come down to one of our classic Devon lanes down here. So on my right, we've got some daffodils which have already emerged and they're already in full bloom. This is because this lane is providing a microclimate which is just slightly warmer than the surrounding countryside, allowing these plants to develop just a little bit quicker than everywhere else. On my left hand side, we've also got a beautiful hedgerow forming. Now this will also be coming into bloom with a variety of plants. We've got ivy in here and we've also got some hazel starting to appear in this hedgerow as well. Now, as well as the daffodils starting to bloom, we've also got this tree line which will also be emerging very shortly. So you can also keep an eye out for some tree catkins as well. So here at Slapton Lee, we're down on the Shingle Ridge, just between Slapton Lee Lake and the sea. And on this ridge we've got a variety of flowering plants which are just starting to open up now as the warm weather appears. So we've got a gorse bush next to us over here with its beautiful yellow flowers. So the gorse flowers will flower twice a year and they're vital in the spring for providing a nutrient source for emerging insects such as bumblebees. Now, they will give off a very unique smell, almost like coconut, and in fact the gorse flowers are even edible. Although these ones might need a few more weeks. So we've come down to the reed bed area of Slapton Lee, and this is the perfect place for amphibians to be emerging and starting to lay their spawn. So down here at the Lee we get both frog spawn and toad spawn, and there's a couple of ways you can tell the differences. Now the frog spawn will be those familiar clumps that you might see in your ponds in your gardens, and the toads will lay a big long string of spawn, usually attached to these reed beds over here. Now the frogs and toads will actually return to the same body of water that they themselves were born in, so it's really important that we preserve these wetland habitats and preserve the breeding sites for these animals. Now generally the frog spawn will appear a little bit later on in the spring, but down here in the south of Devon it can appear as early as February. So it's also really important to keep any long grass or any vegetation near the ponds extra long, as that provides an excellent shelter for these animals as they're making their way down to their breeding sites. So now we're back here at the Slapton Lee Field Centre and we're just in time to see the emergence of our hazel catkins. Now these catkins are the male part of the flower and you usually start to see them between January and March down here in South Devon. Now these will be containing the pollen which the plants will be using to pollinate and reproduce. So these hazel catkins are often known as lamb's tails because they do tend to appear around the same time as the lambing season. And the hazel itself was traditionally used to create lambing pens down here on the farms. Out here at the Slapton Lee National Nature Reserve, we also encourage the hazel to grow as it creates a fantastic habitat for ground flora and also very rare animals such as the hazel dormouse. Improves with the spring, you might also start thinking about some gardening work, particularly mowing the lawn after the winter break. Now we normally recommend mowing the lawn in the first 2 weeks of April, but what you need to consider is, do you actually need to mow the entire lawn? It's sometimes good to leave patches of long grass, such as this bank, for wildflowers to appear. It also provides an excellent habitat for frogs, and also being careful not to go over any compost heaps where you might find hibernating hedgehogs. Now, as you're watching out for this lawn, as the weather starts to warm up, you might also notice the emergence of bumblebees. Now, the queen bees will start to emerge and you will often see them zigzagging very low to the ground as they try and look for a suitable nesting site for the year. What they'll also be looking for is those early emerging flowers such as the gorse and the hazel that we've already looked at. So do keep an eye out for these features and keep an eye out for those signs of spring.